All right, lesson 10.7, writing equations of circles. This is kind of just the opposite of what we did in the previous lesson, where we were given the equation and we had to pull out the center and the radius. In this lesson, we're going to be given the center and the radius and we've got to write the equation. So kind of, like I said, kind of like the reverse of the previous lesson. So we need to remember that the standard form of an equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, where hk is the center and r is the radius. All right, so on this first page, I'm going to work through the odds and I'm going to leave the evens for you to do. All right, so for number one, the directions say write each equation, each circle equation in standard form using the given information. So for the first one, I've got the center at 5, 3 and the radius 2. Okay, so for these, all we have to do is plug in into the equation. So I would have x minus 5 because 5 is our h, or our x coordinate of the center, squared plus y minus 3, which is our y coordinate of the center. And then for the radius, remember this is r squared, so we have to take 2 and square it. So we get 4. So x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 4 is the equation of that circle. Okay. For number 3, everything is the same until we get to the radius part. We're actually given diameter, so let's start this the same way. X plus 2 squared plus y plus 11 squared. Now remember, I changed these to plus because I was given a negative 2. And if we think about our equation, it's already minus h. So if you subtract a negative, it's going to be positive. So that's why these become positive 2 and positive 11. Okay, now let's think for a second. If our diameter is 18, that means the radius is 9. It's half of that. Okay, so if I have, if I have 18 and get 9 and then I square it, I have 81 for this part of the equation. Okay, for number 5, x plus 4, because negative 4 is my x coordinate, plus, now when I have 0, I don't have to write anything there. Plus 0 or minus 0 is not going to change that y squared, so I can just put y squared. Okay, equals, now this one's a little tricky. Okay, let's think about this for a second. The diameter is the square root of 47. Okay, so that means the radius is half of that. So the square root of 47 over 2. Okay, but then this is supposed to be r squared. So if we square the square root of 47 over 2, we would actually have 47 over 4. Now, obviously, we could turn that into an improper fraction, but I'm just going to leave it as 47 over 4 for now. Okay. Number 7. Now, this is a little different because here, instead of being given the center and the diameter or radius, we're given the center and the circumference. Okay, so the first part of the equation is going to be done the same way. So I would have x plus 1, it's the opposite of that, a negative 1, so it's plus 1, plus y minus 4. Okay, so let's stop for a second and think about this. Normally, my circumference is found like this. Okay, but in the formula, c equals 2 pi r, c equals 2 pi r, I'm given 6 pi as the circumference. So I'm going to put this over here. So 6 pi equals 2 pi r. So if I divide both sides by 2 pi, the pi's cancel. See, all this cancels. The pi's cancel. 6 over 2 is 3. So my radius for this one is just 3. And if we square that, we get 9. Okay, number 9 is similar. I can start with x plus 8 squared plus y plus 11 squared. Okay, now area. So I have A equals pi r squared. I'm given that the area is 16 pi. So I'm going to write 16 pi equals pi r squared. I can divide both sides by pi. I'm running out of space here, sorry. Pi's cancel, so 16 equals r squared. That means r is 4. So for this problem, r is 4. But in the formula for the equation for a circle, we square that, so r squared would be 16. Okay, now for number 11, we are given a graph, and we're supposed to write the equation for the circle. So to do that, I need to know the center, and I need to know what the radius is. Alright, so when I'm trying to find the center here, I know that it's equidistant from every point on the circle. So I can kind of narrow it down just by sort of guesstimating with my eyes. But I want to check and make sure. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 appears to be the diameter. I'll count this way just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so where those two diameters intersect, we would have the center of the circle. So I'll do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's going to be my center. And I just told you that R is 5. And that center is at the point 1, 2, 3, -2. Okay. So then to write that equation, it's just like we were doing up above. So I would have x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 5 squared is 25. Okay, so number 12 then is pretty much the same kind of thing. Okay, on the next page, I have 2 more types of problems. I'm going to do number 13. Let's see. Yeah, I'll do 13 and 17 and leave the rest for you to work on. So we're going to actually work through these. We're going to have to use the distance formula, and I'll kind of explain that in a second. But first I want to remind you the distance formula and then the midpoint formula. So we have x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, and all that's under the radical for the distance formula. For the midpoint, we have x1 plus x2 over 2. That gives you your x terms, just the average of the x's. And then y1 plus y2 over 2, the average of the y's gives you the y coordinate. Okay. So for number 13, we're looking at the center and a point on the circle. Okay. Well, if we think about what we need to write this equation, we need the center and we need the radius if we're going to write the equation of a circle. Radius. So here we're given the center, 9, 10, and we are given a point on the circle. Well, the radius is just the distance between the center and the point on the circle. It is the distance. So that means to find r, in this case, I'm going to use the distance formula. Okay, so I can use these. I'll do 9 minus 7 squared plus 10 minus 4 squared. Okay, so 9 minus 7 is 2 squared is 4. 10 minus 4 is 6 squared is 36, and all that's still under the radical. So simplified, I have the square root of 40 for radius. So I'm going to be using this for my radius, and I was already given the center up at the beginning. Okay, so now to write this equation, I'll write x minus 9 squared, that came from here, plus y minus 10 squared equals, now when we square the square root of 40, we get just 40. Okay, so here is our equation, and we, because we were given the center and the point on a circle, like I showed you, that is actually the definition of a radius. So once we found that distance between those 2 points, we knew that we had the radius, then we could just write our equation. 14, 15, 16, pretty much the same concept, so I'll leave those for you to do. On number 17, we are given, it says endpoints of a diameter. Okay, so conveniently, the endpoints of a diameter, if you think about the definition of diameter, the endpoints, can't get my paper straight, sorry about that. The endpoints are on the circle, but a diameter goes through the center of a circle. Okay, so if I use the midpoint formula, I can actually get, I can find the center of the circle. It will be given by the midpoint, and then we've already seen how we can use the distance formula to find the radius. Okay, so first things first, let's find the midpoint. Okay, so midpoint would be, it's the average of the x's, and I'm given x's here, so the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So for the x coordinate, I would have negative 14 plus negative 10 over 2. And then for the y coordinate, I would have 1 plus 9 over 2. Okay, so negative 14 plus negative 10 is negative 24, divided by 2 would be negative 12 for my x coordinate. And 1 plus 9 is 10, over 2 is 5. So negative 12, 5 for the y coordinate. Okay, so what we found here is the midpoint, aka the center of the diameter, so therefore the center of the circle. So now to find, since we know that this would be, the center would be negative 12, 5 for this one, we can use either one of these because this, the center to this point and the center to that point are going to be equal in a circle, so it doesn't matter which one we use. So let's just suppose that this one, we'll use that one, negative 10, 9. So for my radius, I can plug in, I lost my place. Let's see, so negative 10, we'll do, let's do negative 12 minus negative 10 squared plus 5 minus 9 squared. Okay, so negative 10 minus negative 12 is the same as negative, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Negative 12 minus negative 10 is the same as negative 12 plus 10, which is negative 2. And when we square that, we get 4. 5 minus 9 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16, so plus 16. So this is going to be the square root of 20. So r is the square root of 20. Now I'm going to use, I need the center, right, to do my circle formula. So x, our center was negative 12, 5, so plus 12 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals the square root of 20 squared, which is 20. Okay, so 18, 19, and 20 are all pretty much work the same way. So take some time and see what you can do with those.